So what we want to do today is talk about digital marketing and the importance of connecting with customers using new age formats like social media and other electronic means. There's been a proliferation in digital marketing, as you know, and we want to talk about the place of these new medias in marketing and marketing strategy and how marketing has changed. So Pam Scheidler says that clearly brands need to guide their messaging, but this does not imply that brands control the conversation. Brands offer points and ideas for which customers can connect, but it falls far short of the notion that brands somehow control the ways in which customers connect with them. Customers increasingly demand more control with communication and how they want to connect with the brand and other customers. So the salient point here is, with technology, the consumer is very much gaining control of how they want to be marketed to. And it's not just about a one-way communication. That's the big message. And the key here is to use the digital age, use these digital technologies, okay? And offer a way not only to promote product, but to promote other customers and connect customers with the product and with others that using the product. So it's about the added enhancing of the customer experience. When we talk about digital marketing, we talk about the strategies and tactics of communication with customers or delivering these benefits. Media is the technology that we use. Social proof are the reviews and the recommendations and the likes and all of those other commenting and all of that other stuff that happens. And of course, advertisements are the banner stuff that happens when you're on a website or a media site of some sort. Of course, digital media includes these platforms. It's nothing new here. Websites, email, text messaging, so on and so forth. If we look at the customer connections, right? We talk about customers connecting with each other in the new world and the marketer, not just the marketer, not just the company. So that's the big difference that media and digital age has brought. And it's revolutionized marketing because companies now need to think about this, and they've made so many mistakes in this learning process. Can you think of a learning mistake that they've made in the recent times? I'm sure you can. Let me give you some food for thought. Years ago, you know, you go to the ATM machine and the ATM machine dispenses money and they charge you a fee, and consumers couldn't do anything about the fee, or they couldn't engage. With digital media, there was a problem with the ATM service of a particular 19-year-old consumer. 19-year-old consumer went on social media, complained. Company didn't do anything. This was Bank of America. And with all of the connections that this user had by way of just the Bank of America Facebook page, they were able to nearly bring Bank of America to a halt because Bank of America ignored the customer grievance, and there was this big revolution that was created because the customers could connect each other right through the bank's webpage. And Bank of America had to re-market their ATM services, and they lost a lot of goodwill. So that's an example of how marketers, even big companies who have a lot of resources, missed the boat, right? Or miscalculated the importance of digital media and how it has changed over the years. If we look at the digital age and how the consumer has changed, there's an expectation, and many companies are delivering much richer information. There's so much richness in the information that consumers are expecting a lot of throughput, right, online. And much of the expectation revolves around what their own needs are. So marketers are getting much smarter, much savvier. They're using technology to offer marketing messages and promotional messages that are centered on the customer's needs, right? And also this information is always present, or what we call omnipresent, right? It's available anytime the customer clicks on their phone, on their iPad, and so on and so forth. Again, customers are also interconnected. They can look up brand features, pricing features, anything off of many websites all at the same time, right? And of course, we discussed personalization. It's all centered around what the consumer needs and what the specific situation of the marketplace is, as well as that customer and where they sit. You can see exponential growth, a huge growth in terms of mobile usage, right? Smartphone usage, everyone's on this stuff. And now with COVID-19 and all of our lockdowns that are in place in this current environment, the world has been changing over the last few weeks, right? We are even more reliant on our phones and so on. I think this table I included in here because it really summarizes the new word of mouth, right? Online reviews. We wonder how important these are. But over half of us in a certain age group place more trust on these reviews than the opinions of friends and families. I have this constant debate in my own household. I say, hey, have you looked at this, guys? And they say, well, no, the reviews aren't good. And I'm like, well, are you sure you're looking at these things from a perspective that's important to you? People have gotten accustomed to looking at online reviews and making the decisions based on those. 9 out of 10 people are saying that these reviews influence their purchase decisions. This is incredible, right? You don't even know these people, right? You might even trust them more than you trust your own family and friends because you perceive less bias. So incredible amount of data and studies around the efficacy of online reviews. Social media is proliferated, there's no question, right? So we've got relationship sites like Facebook, WhatsApp, you know, people that establish relationship between one or more people or one or more individuals or one or more groups, okay? Then you have publishing platforms like a WordPress and Tumblr and Blogger. You've got things like Pinterest and Flipboard, which are combine those two, the publishing platforms and relationships in one. I love Pinterest, I'm sure many of you do as well. Then you've got sharing sites where you're sharing pictures like a Snapchat and Instagram, you know, YouTube. We now talked about the YouTube video channel that we have for this class, right? There's just amazing amount of content. If I wanted to market my classes to external constituents, I can do that using my YouTube channel, right? Immediately, right? We've got review sites that influence decisions like a Yelp or Zomato for, you know, restaurants. And internet-based networks like a Goodreads, they are focused on specific interests that user communities might have. And it's topic-based. So lots of different proliferations of these platforms. Marketers need to remember, they need to use these platforms to their benefit. They need to understand the audiences that are using these. They need to understand, have a strategy for each type of platform. The messaging needs to be coordinated. It can't be conflicted. Obviously, simplicity and visualizations are very important. People are very visually oriented these days. And high response rate. If you go and engage on these platforms as a company, you have to be able to respond to customer needs. and make this process reliable, right? Reliable and high quality. And you can see the dominance of these apps. Right? This is as of 2017, but it's not far from what exists today. You know, you've got Facebook, WhatsApp. WhatsApp is now part of Facebook. Back in 2017, it wasn't. You've got Messenger. You've got a ton, and there's even more that are growing. Now, marketing need to also proliferate or integrate with search engine optimization, email, spam. You got to be careful that you don't end up, if you're a marketer, you don't want to end up in the spam box, right? And mobile marketing is a little different because the screen print is different. What they see on a mobile phone should be very mobilized, if you will, right? Versus a web page, people are looking for a much more expansive interaction. There are many strategies, but here's a few when companies are building their websites. When we look at a company's website, we are expecting, or we should expect, to be enveloped in the company's brand. It needs to be a visual representation of the company. What do you want me to think of when I look at your website if you're company A? It should project the brand or the image the company wishes to project. They also should be easy to navigate. I should be able to find information very easy. It should be graphical. It should be visual, right? It should be accessible. There should be entries from a mobile device or a physical device or so many different ways, right? It also should be linked with social media. People don't want to go to a separate web page. They want to go to the web page. They want to go to one web page and then launch from there. Unique names, intuitive structure, quality, descriptions, image with descriptions, you know, promotion activity, all of these help optimize the search capability, right? There's a whole science around and discipline and capability around search engine optimization, right? There are companies selling these services to marketing organizations. Hey, we can help your search results come on top, right? So search engine optimization is a big area in digital marketing and an explosive area, great for job searches and so on. So you have to start to think about, you know, these components that connect customers, the differences between strategy and technology, right? When it comes to digital media. Basically, this is an area where we learn how to engage, and marketers are constantly learning how different demographic influence how the company can connect with their customers and with the customers of that company with other customers and prospects seamlessly, right? So that the brand and the company comes out ahead, and also the users and customers are served product and services in an efficient manner. They understand how their problems, their own needs are solved by the company's offerings. So I want to stop here for a second. And so we're going to talk about metrics and measuring against these metrics for marketing effectiveness. Performance, tactical performance, strategic performance, applying metrics to different channels, price-related metrics, product-related metrics. So this section of learning is all about measurements and making sure our marketing plans are effective. We already emphasized in previous discussions that marketing is a strategic activity. Sales is a very tactical activity. They need to close numbers. They need to make deals. They need to pump in revenue. But marketing is much more of a strategic business exercise that, if done correctly, will secure long-term success. But long-term success is built on short-term tactical successes, right? So you got to do things now to build up to the long-term goal. So marketing has the dubious job of figuring out what the long-term goals are and then putting them into short-term duration projects or initiatives to get there. Anytime a marketing manager invests company resources, they need to understand and analyze what to expect as a return on that investment. Marketers use analytical techniques to test marketing tactics and to ensure that marketing effectiveness is measured and improved upon cycle from cycle, period from period, year to year. So what are tactical objectives? Well, they specify how marketing managers want the future to look in some way. Very specific, they're short-term, narrow, operational decisions and tasks, actions, right, that are part of an overall marketing strategy. So here's a flow that all right, so back to marketing and marketing managers. They want to assess the effectiveness of the tactical components, right? And they want to understand how they're doing overall with their plan. That's their goal, right? You can measure things like sales in dollars or units. You can see that rising sales are a positive sign. Falling sales may be a negative sign, obviously. If we look at metrics of overall marketing effectiveness, these are some of the standard metrics. Market share. What's market share? Market share percentage is defined as the brand sales divided by the category sales, right? It's a comparative metric of the firm's marketing success, okay? Relative market share is what? It's the brand's market share divided by category in the key competitor, meaning how are you doing relative to others? Return on investment is how much money you're making divided by the total investment. What is your profit? If I invested $1 million and my profit is 100,000, my ROI is 10%, right? 100,000 divided by $1 million. Return on marketing investment is a finer detail on that. It's called ROMI, return on marketing investment, and it's the gross profit minus the marketing expenses divided by the marketing expenses. It specifically focuses on marketing efforts and what are the return on that marketing investment. If we measure on these, we can see, right? If we start to measure, we can see how we're doing month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year, 10-year period, right? We can start to see the effectiveness of marketing. That's the key. Marketing share is what the marketing managers rely on most. It's very straightforward, universally accepted, right? For marketing managers, everything aside, right? Everything equal, they need to make sure that their brands are leading to greater acceptance and adoption. They want their brand to grow. Otherwise, you're a failing marketing person if you can't make your brand to grow, right? So they want to do everything possible to improve that market share for that brand. Here's some product-related tactical success type metrics, right? Brand trial rate, market penetration rate, brand growth rate, brand development index, right? What are these? Well, let's take a couple of these, right, and examine them. The brand trial rate is a percentage. It's the first time trials in a particular group over the total population of the target group, right? So it's like if I'm looking at students, I want to sell students a textbook. or no, not a textbook, but I want to sell them food on campus. I want to say, okay, the total population is the whole student group. How many people are trying the food at the cafeteria? That becomes a first time trial. And I can calculate the rate, right? It's the best indication of new user acceptance, right? New user acceptance. Are people using the dining hall? Are people using the store across the street, right? Brand development index gives an indication of how well sales of a brand are doing relative to another target group, right? Supply chains, meaning the processes that exist to provide product on shelf, their goal is to provide consumers with the brands that they want and in the places they want them, when they want to buy them. You don't go to Subway sandwich shop and look for a hamburger, right? You just don't. So why would they keep hamburgers there? I guess they could sell them, but most likely they would have to do a lot more marketing before they could sell burgers at the Subway. You want burgers, you go to McDonald's, you go to a burger shop, right? You go to Subway because the branding, we've been accustomed to the branding and we know what Subway is good for. They're good for subs. If Subway wanted to change that, they'd have to do a lot of marketing because no one's going to accept eating burgers at Subway because we have a particular vision or impression about the brand called Subway. There are some metrics for assessing logistical aspects of the supply chain, like stock turn rate, stock out rate, stock out days. These metrics, we call them logistical functions. They extend beyond putting the goods in a particular way and getting consumers to buy them. Marketing managers use these metrics to identify potential problems with the supply chain, right? That's what they're focused on using. We know every product has an SKU. It's an identifying code, right? If you look at anything you buy in the grocery store, it's got that little barcode, there's SKU on it. It's unique, right? They track how quickly these SKUs move through a store. They can see when it's running short of inventory. They can measure. I was in Stop and Shop a week ago, and because of this whole social distancing, they've got robots going up and down, and robots are taking pictures of these SKUs to determine where product is running low on the shelf so they can do stocking without even any human intervention. This is amazing. Now, there's more metrics around assessing distribution, right? How do products get distributed? The outlet rate, right? The category volume. Okay, what are these things? Well, the relevant outlet rate measures how available the brand is to a customer who potentially want it, right? How available is it? Right now, toilet paper is not doing so well, guys, because there's none available, as you might have heard on the news. The outlet rate is really poor. Well, we're in a pandemic, so, but again, toilet paper has nothing to do with the pandemic, right? In some ways. I read a huge article 2 days ago, I guess I was bored, on why there's a toilet paper shortage. There's actually not much of a reason. It was just panic buying. There is a little bit of a reason. They said, well, people are home more, and so if they're home more, they're likely to go to the bathroom more, and they assume they need more toilet paper. But I don't know if that's the reason for the huge shortage. I think the huge reason for the huge shortage is panic, that the outlet rate's affected. Now there's pricing metrics, okay? Price elasticity is very important for marketers. They like to measure this. It's the percentage change in the quantity sold that occurs with a percentage change in price. Let's repeat that. Price elasticity is the percentage change in quantity sold that occurs with a percentage change in price. What does that mean? Well, let me give you a simple example, okay? If I have hand sanitizer that I am used to buying at $2 a bottle, right? And let's say it's $2 a bottle. I'm able to sell 100 bottles if I'm a Walmart per day. If I change that price by 50%, make it $3 a bottle, then I measure how much I'm able to sell in $3 a bottle. If I'm able to sell lower, that means that the percentage change in price is elastic, right? So if I'm able to sell more or less or the same, that's what determines price elasticity. And obviously, if you're factoring in the pandemic in my example, then that blurs the elasticity equation, because demand has gone up. People are willing to pay way more now for sanitizer than they were a month ago. When demand is elastic, it occurs when elasticity is greater than 1. When demand is inelastic, large changes in price produce proportionately smaller changes in quantity. That means people are willing to buy, right? People are willing to buy. Break-even analysis is the break-even point, right? It's when revenues and costs are equal. That means for one more quantity of unit sold after you reach the break-even point, you start to grow revenue because your costs plateau out. Break-even analysis calculates the sales levels in units or dollars required to cover both fixed and variable costs. That's real important. Measuring advertising is largely focused on the exposure level that channel of advertising provides that company, not necessarily the content. It's very, very difficult to evaluate the effectiveness of advertising based on the creative content. It's very time consuming. It's highly inaccurate. Advertising really cares about 3 variables: the reach, the frequency, and the impression that advertising is making on the consumer. Reach refers to the percentage of people in the target audience exposed, right? Frequency refers to the average number of times those people saw the advertisement. An impression is the one advertisement being seen by one person during a given period of time. Companies are concerned about gross impressions, average frequency, ratings, and so on, right? They're concerned about that. That's what they want. So they measure it to see if it's effective, and they'll compare their results to the cost of advertising and see if it makes sense. We are, especially in social media and the digital media revolution, we are still in infancy. We don't know exactly what works, how best to use it. It's a lot of trial and error for many companies. There are some things, some media metrics that are, mother and apple pie. For example, page hits. We can measure those. How many times do people go to our webpage? The more they go, the more interested that they are in our company. Very easy. Page views. So the first one's a hit. We talk about browser contacts with a website, many hits coming from the search area, etc. Page visits are even more important. It represents the number of people who go to a website and view at least some information there on some sort of page. And visitors are the unique number of people using unique devices who visit a website. Then you've got click-through rates, bounce rates, conversion rates, and abandonment rates, right? Click-through is number of clicks that an online advertisement receives divided by the people exposed to that online advertisement, right? Easy. Bounce rate is the percentage of visitors who come to a site who navigate away quickly without venturing beyond the landing page, right? They just go and they just like bounce off. Conversion is where people actually interact with the website, actually visit the website and complete a task, like filling out a contact form, or I don't know, clicking send me more information, you know, whatever it might be. And abandonment rates are number of abandoned web interactions over the visitors. So another ratio. All of these are percentages, meaning ratios, right? And there are so many others, guys. I mean, this is just a sampling, but you should be able to describe the difference between some of these rates. If I gave you these ratios without telling you what they are, you should be able to give me an English description of what they mean. Just like I did. You know, I looked at the ratio and I was able to explain to you. I don't calculate these day in and day out. I just know because they're all simple division or multiplication problems. So that, my friend, is a little bit about metrics and measurements. Okay, I gave you a quick overview. Let me do a pause. Talk about integrated marketing mix for the next few minutes. I want to make sure everybody's understanding what we mean by market mix and the analysis thereof. What are the different linkages between producers, product producers, service producers, and consumers of those products and services? And how do we arrive at the final marketing mix that's optimal? Ankit discussed that earlier in his current event review, which gave us a segue into this discussion. We've already talked about what the marketing mix is, right? Now we need to talk about how do we actually put it in practice? How do we make the effective, how does a marketer actually come up with the effective marketing mix? First and foremost, the marketer and the marketing department and the marketing executives have to make sure that these elements, these product mix elements, right, or marketing mix elements should be consistent and they should work together. They should not be clashing. And the marketer needs to be concerned about how it's going to be perceived by the marketplace, right? And they have to be willing to flex and adjust. So if we think about the linkages, right, we've got product, place, price, promotion, and then remember we discussed 5, participation. And the linkages are simply product needs to address benefits and solutions for the customer. Place is talking about convenience. Is the product and the service offered at the right place for consumers to engage? Price is extremely important, especially in today's day and age in this environment. Consumers are increasingly cost and value conscious in many, many industries. Not always, but in many industries. Promotion is about positioning, right? Positioning and communicating and messaging. And participation relates a lot to this latest topic we've been talking about with digital media because it's about establishing connection with the customer. And customers are much more ready and able to connect using social media type services. So we look at GoPro's example, the camera company. They created a product in response to a desired benefit that the customer was looking for that existing products didn't meet. Namely, sports photography, right? Rugged, durable, bang-up cameras that do high resolution pictures. They made it available at sporting goods stores, right? You would never think of buying a camera at a sporting goods store, but that's what GoPro did, right? Because they were focusing on that market. They used different promotion tools. They had YouTube promotion videos. They had giveaways. They had so many different things, right? They sponsored events, athletic events. So extremely creative when it comes to establishing these linkages. It is also possible to make decisions on these product mix or marketing mix variables that then affect other variables, right? Like the convenience aspect. Producer different decisions that affect the perceptions of consumers are referred to as supporting linkages, right? They're not the mainstream linkages, but they're supporting linkages. And supporting product decisions can offer many consumer benefits, right? But product decisions can affect other 4 elements as well. Place affects convenience, we discussed that. Price affects cost or is related to cost. Promotion affects the communication. And participation affects the convenience. Well, how do we know how to package this? How do you arrive at a final product mix, right? Marketing mix. Well, it depends on what's important to the company. If they're looking to increase market share, if they're looking to increase sales, or maybe they want to increase per customer profitability, or maybe it's about survival, right? They want to make sure their brand is not diminished by the stronger brands that are out there. They're going to have an overall marketing strategy, right? And they need to select the most important combination of these elements to leverage those strong points of their strategy. What are the steps? Well, you got to understand what your strategy is and what are the core elements in your marketing approach. Then select the supporting elements, right? Where the price, place is your first focus. You start to modify and make recommendations on those. Then you're going to find that as you go along, you're becoming inconsistent in your approach. So you've got to make it uniform and consistent and not clashing. Modifications are always necessary. I wouldn't say maybe. On second thought, I would have worded this as always. Nobody gets it right the first time. There's an initial planning process and then it morphs, right? And marketers have to ask how, the big question, how will I use these variables to deliver desired results on the customer side that maximizes the perceived value? How? Exactly how? Eliminating inconsistent elements is pretty simple. You rank order what's important and you start to see where you're clashing. And you start to eliminate those things that are second or third of importance to you versus the first. So GoPro is a great example, but I would encourage you to look at other examples and see if you can find a stronger example than GoPro. I might ask you in a reinforcement exercise to discuss another example and see how that company besides GoPro applied that marketing mix, okay? So that might be a good reinforcement. I'll give you a week to do it. Don't worry, it's not going to be extensive, but that might be a wonderful way to reinforce some of this learning. So here, we want to talk about these core and supporting marketing mix linkages and tactics to include in a tactical operationalized plan. And then what are the measures used to assess effectiveness of this plan, both short-term and long-term, right? And are there barriers to controlling it? What comes up usually? Okay, that's the purpose of the next few minutes discussion. So this is a process-based discussion, step-by-step guide to implementing a strategy properly. You can expect to learn about action plans, implementation of the plan, and evaluation of the plan, which is the measurements part, right? So remember, let's review. Marketing's job is to create a plan. They're not going to actually generate sales. It's a misnomer to think that marketing is going to generate sales. They generate and enable product messaging, the 4 Ps, the 5 Ps, the Cs, and then they decide how to implement the plan and control the plan. There are still so many other resources involved in the organization to actually do the selling. So here's a BMW Mercedes example, right? To take off on Samaya's key takeaways from her current event. If we look at the comparison of the marketing mix between Mercedes and BMW, you can start to see similarities, but you can also start to see differences. They're both high value luxury cars. If we look at the benefits that they're trying to give consumers, well, Mercedes focuses the marketing tactics, the P's around their brand, right? The emblem, the star emblem, elegant, sober, safety. That's what we know of. That's what the market identifies with when they see Mercedes. Whereas BMW, sports, power, technology, right? Not that they don't have elegance either, but they focused on these aspects. And what does the customer get? Well, in the case of Mercedes, they get the achievement, they get the sense of superiority. On the BMW side, they get fun, joy, sporty adventures. They get the confidence. You know, this is confirmed by customers. This is not just an assessment. Likewise, if we look at the promotion communications, right, as an example, Mercedes tends to create a documentary style, interviewing celebrities and Instagram pics and so on. Whereas BMW relies on lifestyle stories. They get real people from the field who own Mercedes, gives real stories, and they use that in their campaigns. People can relate to BMW. They can say, hey, I can be that person. But on the Mercedes side, they're obviously not going to say they're going to be Beyonce or somebody else that's using it, but they perceive themselves as a member of an exclusive community, prestige, right? And so on. So both companies, very well, very established, they approach it differently. Comprehensive planning requires less work later. It's almost a pay now, pay later proposition. There will be problems, there will be adjustments, there will be no one planned COVID-19. I'm sure everybody's marketing plan is out the window, and they're making major assessments if they survive at all. For contingency planning to be effective, companies have to identify in advance of the contingencies kicking in, what's most important to them? What's most difficult to implement for their company? What are some of the objections or the roadblocks that are going to exist? How do we overcome them? Right? So these are the things they need to plan for as they're going through the exercise. The marketing manager must assign responsibilities for each task and the timeline for when to complete the task. So it has to be very crisp, very clear, and very definite. Specific tasks and assignments give responsibilities. Budgets are more difficult. They require justification and specificity, and sometimes are harder to calculate, but you got to do them. Timelines provides a calendar for both marketing and the activities, as well as when we're likely to see outcome and results. So here's a sample timeline for marketing implementation, right? You've got it laid out from January all the way to December. You've got more detailed planning up front because you can only see January, February, March when you're looking at this from a January 1st standpoint, or at January 1st. As you progress and traverse down the right side of this chart, obviously you start to blow up week by week from April, May, June, July, and so on, right? I mean, you can see they've got campaigns here, you've got participation like seminar series, when are the stores going to run certain events, whatever the use case is. This is a sample timeline plan for marketing. There's two basic approaches to monitoring and controlling when implementing a plan. Reaction, which is more common than steering, and steering requires guidance. Reaction is much more reactionary, or in response to, whereas steering is much more strategic. So now we're going to use some terminology in marketing planning that is very close to automobile industry. Reaction control system, what does that mean? What does steering control system mean? What are formal controls and informal controls? What are benchmarking and best practices? Well, let's start from the bottom because it's easiest to explain. Best practices in any industry, right, are very simply defined as practices that are shared, knowledge that is shared, and expertise that has been proven to be successful. It doesn't mean it's going to be successful. It's just that historically, they've been the best practices in order to guarantee success. But there's no guarantees for the future. You've all heard of the term, past performance does not guarantee future performance, right? Benchmarking actually closes the gap. If you do good benchmarking and you have couple it with good best practices, you're more likely to get the results you're looking for. So benchmarking is the process of comparing your company to others to figure out how you're doing relative to others. Informal controls are the unwritten, the unspoken, the undocumented influences we have on employee behavior, right? Can we motivate our staff? Can we encourage them? And those would be considered informal. Formals are the guidelines, the rules, do it or you get fired type of protocols. A steering control system versus a reaction control system, when we control the plan, once the plan is set, is very simple. Steering is the ongoing monitor and oversight. We continuously monitor what's happening to proactively make changes, but reaction control is a preset set of evaluation points. For example, if we lose this much market share, we have to make changes. If we gain this much, we have to do this, right? They're preset evaluation points and standards. At the end of a period, call it a quarter or a year or whatever you want to measure, to compare sales and then set the goals and make changes where you need to do. So reaction is reacting to a variable that you've already defined that's going either up or down, and steering is providing the overall governance and leadership. You can do a point-in-time evaluation. A point-in-time evaluation is one-shot deal. And you can, and a point evaluation or assessments at a given particular time. I can do one right now, for example, or I could do one tomorrow. A marketing audit is a comprehensive, okay, how are we doing relative to each component on the mix? Do we have the right mix? Is our metric showing that we are on track or are we behind? What can we do to catch up? A simple marketing audit looks at various areas, right? For example, you'll look at, is the positioning correct? Do we want to be known for this? What are we actually known from? Our target customer is this. Who's actually buying the target, right? So it's what is the objective and what's actually happening. We think it's going to be easier to sell iPads in this kind of store or this kind of distribution on Amazon. Is it working? Years ago, Apple made a decision to open up Costco. It was a long, painful decision. They did not want to sell their product through Costco because Costco always deep discounts, and Apple does not like to be deep discounting because it's not favorable to it, because they don't need to, right? But the channel that Costco provides, the accessibility it provides to so many people in a neighborhood, they couldn't ignore it. So Apple went out of Costco and came back in after 2 years. And so on. So you can take a point in time evaluation on any of these metrics and start to say, well, what was my objective and what did I actually accomplish? And then, of course, make adjustments if it's not satisfactory. Most companies are collecting these point in time data as well as doing ongoing evaluations. It provides a sooner than point in time assessment. And much of this data, metrics data, is usually served up in dashboards. So there's tools like Salesforce.com or other tools, right, that show how marketing is performing relative to the sales of the company or any other metric, right? Here's an example of the dashboard, right? Look at that, cute. Shows the number of leads, for example, that we got. We got number of sales lead, new customers, right? What are we getting from different digital media channels? Here it says 22,500 on Twitter versus 13,000 something from Facebook, 13.245 thousand, right? And so on. And this gives the marketing manager or marketing executive a good purview of what's happening. They can make adjustments to the plan. Scorecards are another way, right? Balanced scorecards, right? So you can have 4-stream scorecard here: financial, customer, process, and growth objectives, right? What are the objectives? What are the measures? What are the targets? And what are the initiatives to actually make this happen? This is a sample. So, for example, to promote learning and growth, our objective is to monitor demand for accounting engagements. In this example, we measure the number of audits and tax preparations. It's a tax preparation company. And then we target 10 audits or 50 tax preps per month. And then the initiatives are adjusting hourly fee based on what we need to do. So if we're not meeting this, we can adjust the fee and invite more customers to improve this metric. What are the barriers to successful implementation and control of marketing plans? Well, you got to have the right incentives. People have to know why they're doing this, right? What are the incentives? Why would so many people work on it? We have to be very clear and message that from a leadership perspective, from a middle management perspective. Everybody needs to know. If there are different divisions, meaning reservations from different functions, these could be barriers and they have to be accommodated for. Politics always exists in any organization. You've got to overcome those, right? And also there's varying degrees or varying philosophy on what marketing is supposed to do, even in the same firm. There's bureaucracy. There's all kinds of things that could stand in the way. So I can easily ask you this first application question, right? If you take a look at colleges and universities right now, for example, after this pandemic or while we're going through this, right? You can compare like a UNH or any other college. And you can start to see what the differences were in marketing. Like University of New Haven has a marketing approach to the university. University of Maryland, University of Bridgeport, all of the colleges that might be sort of in the same bucket or same category have objectives, right? And you tried to match up your objectives based on what you knew, and what these companies or universities in this case were offering. And I'm sure if I asked any of you to write down 2 tactical differences between what your other choice was besides UNH, you can do that. Now, those tactical differences might be different now because we have the COVID-19 situation and so much has changed. Your own personal needs would have changed. But anyway, I could ask you this and you can easily answer this. So let me pause here and ask for